Hello and welcome to the AIDEM interactions once again. The farmers' agitation is continuing in Delhi, on the outskirts of Delhi, and there is tremendous interest in the farmers' agitation. And as this is happening, there is a parallel documentation of a historical farmers' struggle that happened in the United States of America 40 years ago, which has created huge resonances among the farmers who have gathered in Delhi. In fact, the documentary called Déjà, directed by Bedabrata Pain, a US-based scientist turned documentary filmmaker. It's this movie which has now been shown to leaders like Rakesh Tikayat of the Samyukta Kisan Morcha, and they are planning to take this documentary across the country. Already the English and Hindi versions of this documentary is available. And with me in today's AIDEM interactions is Bedabrata Pain, the director of the movie, the man who worked really hard to go back in history and trace out a particular chapter in the US, in the history of the US agriculture, and especially in terms of so-called reform laws which were brought in US.
Year 2020. Hundreds of thousands of farmers converged at the capital city of India, protesting the controversial farm laws, the largest such sit-in protest the world has witnessed in recent times. These laws were to usher in full-fledged market reforms in agriculture. Well, it turns out that some 4 decades ago, American farming was also opened up.
Under this bill, farmers will be eased into a market-oriented policy. The solution is to get government out of the way and let farmers compete.
So 4 of us, 4 Indians, set out on a 10,000-kilometer journey into the heartland of America. We wanted to find out who benefited from these reforms, who lost out.
Yeah, I went through the bankruptcy because I had massive debt.
We had to sell our dairy herd in 2018 because we were no longer making enough money.
We sell grain oftentimes in the United States as a farmer for less than it takes to produce it.
Well, we used to have 10 million farmers in the United States. We're down to less than 2 million. I mean, we have more prisoners than farmers in the United States now.
Who knows how many farmers committed suicide, but
Accidents. So the wives would get the insurance money.
How did we get here?
I would always say, well, I'm from the future. I've seen what happens when the same kind of policy that you're being told is going to be good for you. I can tell you what happens.
So how did you come up with this idea?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry my voice is in a very bad shape. I've not been keeping well. Last few days it's just been crazy few month or so finishing everything, finishing the Hindi version and showing it around. In fact, we have a screening in Delhi tomorrow. First of all, I'm not a documentary filmmaker. I was a scientist at NASA. We invented the digital camera technology. And then I quit and became a filmmaker. My first movie, Chittagong, won the national award as the best.
Right.
So this documentary kind of came, and that's actually the very good question. What is a
how did you come up
with doing this in the documentary space? Well, I have to thank, strangely speaking, I have to thank our Prime Minister for this.
Okay. Okay.
Because when the farm laws came in 2020, we actually did not understand what the farm laws are about. And I think that's a story with a large number of people even today. A lot of people say that on the face of it, what's so wrong about the farm laws? A large number of people still today have lots of confusion about what is MSP, what is it? Is it a subsidy? Is it? Most of the time, these kinds of things happen. So I said, okay, let me try to read upon this a bit more to understand. And being from a city bred folk, our connection with agriculture is so
limited,
very limited.
Yeah.
So as I started reading, I came across the U.S. and farm suicide in the U.S. And that surprised me. And at that time, I did not know exactly what to look for. And as I started going down the
You're talking
sort of
about
the rabbit
farmer
hole,
suicides in U.S. in contemporary times?
in contemporary times as well.
Okay.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Farmer suicides are happening even now.
Okay.
There was, in fact, the first article that I came across was a Time magazine article.
Right.
So, and it's been happening for a long time. In fact, since you asked that, this is one of the statistics that's in the movie. Farm suicide in last, say, 8 years, whatever the statistics is taken, farm suicide in the US is 4 times the national average.
Well, we used to have 10 million farmers in the United States 100 years ago. We're down to less than 2 million. So we've had a mass exodus of farmers. I mean, we have more prisoners than farmers in the United States now.
And today, all across the U.S., there's no wealth left in rural America. Farmers being driven off the land. Suicide rates are up again.
People were committing suicide over farms that have been in the family 100 years. Some of them farms have been in the family longer than the Civil War.
Who knows how many farmers committed suicide, but
Accidents. So the wives would get the insurance money. They killed themselves for family.
So then it's like, okay, what is going on? And then I realized that what we are trying to do here, market reforms in agriculture, has happened in America for the last 40 years.
Right.
And that was the genesis of the movie. And then there were Rajshik Taravdar and Srishti Agarwal, the 2 young kids, physics PhDs. They also got very excited. We started contacting farmers, and farmers in America has been decimated. So it was difficult to find farmers. We found them, and we decided to make the trip. And then Rumela Ganguly, she is a theatre person. She also came along. So 4 of us went on this trip, talking to farmers in what one may call the Trump country.
Right. So what did you find? I mean, of course, the documentary will be shown across India and people will watch it. But then to kind of, take people to that idea, to the plot of the documentary, the theme of the documentary, what did you find out? I mean, how is it similar with the situation that is unfolding in India?
This much I can say, that of course, every country is different.
Yeah.
Every country's path is going to be somewhat different.
Yeah.
But what market reforms does is very similar.
Right.
And the parallels are uncanny.
Right.
Even though they're so, countries separated by geography, history, whatever you want to call it. But the impact, I think the questions that we asked, and I think that's a question that everybody should be asking, that we all know Indian farmers are in bad situation. If these laws come in, who would benefit? Farmers? Consumers like us? Like from cities? Or corporates? Like,
right.
The problem of Arathias, the middlemen is very real.
Yeah.
But do you think that problem will go away if the corporates come?
Yeah.
Or do you think the problem will become even worse?
Worse.
And I should point out that, in America, to begin with, we had maybe of the American population, maybe 30% were farmers. Today it's down to, 1-2%. I mean, there was a statistic in the movie that there is more people in prison in America than in farming.
Yeah.
We like to say a lot of times here in the States, well, we raise the cheapest food in the world. the most efficient food in the world. Well, we raise the cheapest commodities in the world, but food is not cheap. And most of the working class people in the United States will tell you food's not cheap.
Because the food products are turned into manufactured food that you buy in a great big supermarket, and those prices have no relationship to what the farmer gets for their products.
In the United States, since corporate agriculture has come in, since the monopolies have come in, we've gone from getting a little over 50% of the food dollar to less than 15% now. So less than 15% of what that consumer pays in the grocery store goes to the farmer.
But in India, that's not the case.
Right.
In India, it's a 65% of people are based on a rural production. If this kind of thing happens, if this kind of decimation happens, that's a massive dislocation. That would have repercussions that we are not even prepared for.
Right, right.
I mean, we are always saying that, okay, we should reduce the number of farmers. Okay, all right, good. Where will they go? Cities? You know the situation with cities?
Yeah.
So I think it raises a lot of questions, and I think instead of me giving answers to and we can talk about some of those, I think if these questions are raised in people's mind, and let them do their independent searches, not just what is fed from the corporate media or the corporates themselves and their ideologues and so on. So this was a very honest, independent inquiry of a person who's of Indian origin but based in America. That is there something to learn from another country?
Because you got interested in this subject because of the farmers' agitation in India.
Absolutely.
That's when you the first trigger.
Yes, absolutely. The trigger happened.
Yeah. And then you came to know about what
the American farmers. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I think it's important to know what works. But I think it's equally, if not more important, to know what doesn't work.
Right.
And I think that's a very important place we are in the world today.
Yes. That's a very important component of statecraft, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, you should know what will not work.
Yes. I mean, in fact, if I may say, when I was in the scientist in NASA, I've written a bunch of papers, and during my science career, one of the things that we had taught, we never really implemented it, is to have a journal of failure.
Fantastic. Okay.
That, who was it who had said, Edison, who had said that, 999 didn't work and then one worked.
Yeah.
So it's important to know what didn't work.
Right.
And there is a reason why a lot of companies guard their failures, not because they're afraid of, they're ashamed of their failure, but they don't want anybody else to learn from the failure. And if I may go on a little bit more, in NASA we had a saying that if a mission has failed, then the project manager of the mission, his price goes up.
Right.
Because he knows what doesn't work.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So the price of the current government must go up because they try to implement something that doesn't work.
Well, but are they learning from it? I mean, I think this is a discussion I would actually like to have with everybody, from PMO to Niti Aayog and everybody.
Yeah.
Policymakers, people who are studying policy in educational institutions, that what works, what doesn't work, why would it be different here, why would it be similar? All of these questions. There is a saying, those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it, right? And I think there is something to be said about learning from how market reforms, who it has benefited, who it has hurt. And
in fact, if you look at the earlier experiments in India, like the Pepsi coming into Punjab, which of course is also part of your documentary.
That's right.
So basically, the track record is very clear that that it is not going to benefit. But why do you think the American state pursued that policy, and now the Indian state is pursuing this policy? Why do you think? What is the reason? Why do people in power and the people who run statecraft, how do they get triggered, or how do they get motivated to pursue something like this?
To an extent, you have to ask them, right?
No, I'm asking for your take.
To an extent. Well, if my take is, if I have to put a bit broader view, that in last 40, 50 years maybe, all over the world, and not just in India, not just in America, but all over the world, in different rates, we have seen corporates take over large part of the economy, whether in production or in distribution or in financing or in marketing. In every sphere, you would find a handful of companies do everything. Take media in the US. 5 companies basically dishes out
everything
what you get to think.
Yeah.
Right? So I think one of the questions that we raised in the documentary, and this is again using the American experience as a guide and then bringing some references to India, is the following: that we all say free market is a great thing, and free market is probably a great thing, but where is the free market? Instead of us getting into all these fights about no free market can do this, free market can do that, no free market won't do this, but where is the free market? Today's market is most concentrated, most monopolized.
Right.
And one more thing that we have noticed is that there is a growing connection, very overt connection between those who are in power and the corporates. And if you actually think about it, it's nothing evil. This is to be, if I were in a position of power, and if I can influence through my ideologues, through various writings, through various audiovisual, or maybe directly, the decision makers, why wouldn't I? I mean, if I were a corporate, I would be doing exactly that.
Right.
But the point is that even though that act may be rational, what it does to the society at large, what it does to people at large, in this case farmers, and in this case consumers,
right,
is a very important question. Because in today's world, we have seen huge amounts of profits being made all over, and people's conditions are getting worse and worse. In America, median income has been falling.
Right. So yeah, you took the example of America, but you must have looked at other countries also when you were doing the research for this movie.
Yes.
Do you think that there is any country which has got an ideal combination between free market and market reforms and positive agriculture?
I don't think it's a matter of picking and choosing. It's not one of those sum of small things. It's not like making a khichdi where you take a rice from here, dal from there. It's not that.
Yeah.
What I think we have to look at the trend. We have to look at how things have been evolving. The reason we chose America, there was a very selfish reason, and that's because I'm from America.
Okay.
The second reason is, and because we were in COVID times,
right,
so we couldn't really travel, but this we can come to the conditions under which we shot. But also the reason I chose America, there is a very important reason, because America is the country where very demonstratively these market reforms were initiated.
Right.
Starting from President Ronald Reagan, who kind of created the
basic framework,
base of ideas, the basic framework, as you called it.
Yeah.
Although it was implemented from the left center, that is by Clinton.
Yeah.
It's under President Clinton's time
that
most of these, what one may call neoliberal policies were implemented.
Right.
Various kinds of reforms. So my point was that America, being this country of land of milk and honey, right? That's what it is. It's supposed to be. And that's where they have invented this market reforms. If it doesn't work even in their place,
right,
why should it work here? And more importantly, why should we live with borrowed heads? So I think it's one of the economists we interviewed.
Because somebody was pro-reform to start with.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Professor Eichert.
Yeah.
He was gung-ho about these reforms.
Yeah.
And then he I mean, I didn't show it. He had tears in his eyes at the end because he was like, we have to just throw away everything and say that it did not work. We have to start afresh.
Right.
And that's I think much of the situation today. The problem and the advantage and disadvantage of India, if I were to say, is that when people don't have an experience, it's very difficult to convince people. So that's the disadvantage, because most India doesn't have any experience of what this kind of monopoly capital or what this kind of market, this monopolized market look like. However, the advantage is that we can learn from others. We can see what has happened.
Right.
And mind you, in the first few years, things are going to be good.
Right. Right.
That's how it goes. That's how it always goes. Yeah. Even for farmers, in the first few years, things are going to be good.
Yeah.
And then, and there is a lovely section in the documentary where one of the farmers who explains how it happens, that how the corporates slowly came, and they came with all those ideas of progress, of prosperity, and that you'll get the middleman's money.
Right.
And what happened after that?
Right.
That initially they got a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden,
everything is completely centralized and taken over by the
destroyed.
I saw when I saw the documentary, I realized that how much of travel you did, despite being COVID. I mean, you traveled across the length and breadth of US. Tell us something about.
Well, it's on the length and breadth probably, but that's a good 10,000 kilometers, which is not a small thing. And it was really biting cold when we did it. It was really, really cold. And it was COVID time. So some of the interviews you'll see people are wearing masks. But we were also going into a very unfamiliar land.
Right.
There are these 4 brown folks in predominantly what we call a white country, or which has predominantly voted for Trump. So we didn't know what to expect. But, even when we were sitting in pumping gas, and somebody comes to us and says, "What are you doing here?" So we say that this is what we're doing. They were immediately were supportive.
Okay.
So we had 1 or 2 incidents where people were a little threatening perhaps. But who wouldn't be if you see 4 brown folks in a Toyota car in the middle of America? Right? But I think what our takeaway was the warmth that we got from the farmers. The length to which they went to tell their story, because nobody tells their story. That's one of the things that they talked about. We were doing this interview with Maxwell. He was an ex-lieutenant governor and a small farmer himself. He was sitting in the barn. It was cold as hell. We were shivering and he was shivering. And yet we went on for a good 6 hours with the interview.
Right.
So it was a really, really enriching experience.
Okay.
Because we just don't understand what is it that the farmers are looking for. And things like they would keep on saying elevators.
Okay.
Elevators? Elevators, though, you see in buildings. What is elevators? And there's a section in the movie.
Right.
And let me not expand on that. But it's elevators, that's the life and death for farmers.
Right. I remember that section very well. I'm sure that people who will watch it will be shocked, and also they will also learn some new things.
Yes.
What is the total quantum of footage that you?
Oh boy, I don't even know, because I shot in the US, I shot in India.
Yeah.
I have probably some. I don't know the number.
It's a 70-minute movie.
Yeah, there's huge amounts of footage.
Right.
And there is also footage of stuff that they talked about and they asked us not to put in.
Right.
Like somebody's mother committing suicide, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So those were very personal, and they asked us not to. Because, one of the things that we realized, that 2 things I'd say, and again, both of those they didn't want to talk about. One was their farmers are still very ashamed of their failure.
Right.
So even though they were made to fail because of the corporates, they take the failure as their own failure, and that's
This is what happens in India also.
Exactly.
And that is why I think one of the triggers for suicides is this kind of lack of self-appreciation or
Exactly.
oneself
Exactly.
as a failure.
Exactly. And in America, one more thing that happens is that a lot of farmers are alone the whole day in the field on their tractor. If you're having a psychological problem, that's probably the worst place to be, where you are alone in the middle of a huge field, nobody to talk to, nobody to communicate to.
You was talking about the media in the US and also the kind of responses from media to issues like this. So overall, how has been farmer issues and agriculture issues, how has it got reflected? What is the kind of reflection it has in the American media? And how have people taken to your film?
So, very, 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 very important question, and we will find out because I'm going back to the US to go on that journey in the US as well. But first of all, I would say that corporate media has had pretty much a silence. I mean, there are articles come out, but by and large, there has been a silence on this topic. And I think this movie would have as much of an educational thing for Americans, for urban Americans, as it is for Indians.
Right.
Most of the time, liberals are very keen to or very quick to condemn farmers or that farm belt as xenophobic and so on. And there is a reason why these farmers have gone to Trump. And it's probably this very similar kind of situation why all over the world, including India, there is a rightward shift. I think liberals and left have a lot to look at themselves, introspect. What have we done and what we haven't done? I think that this is a much bigger question, and I hope that with this documentary, that question is also put on the agenda, because whose hand are we holding?
Right. That's a big question.
It's a big question.
Yeah. Well, finally, I have not seen the Hindi version. I've only seen the English version, but I'm told that the great Naseeruddin Shah has done the voiceover for the Hindi section.
Yes.
And in Kannada and Tamil, in all probability, Prakash Raj would be pitching in.
Probably.
So we got an array of committed artists coming in.
Yes. I'm extremely grateful to Mr. Naseeruddin Shah for doing this VO. And it was so nice of him because, he didn't have to do it. But so when I went to thank him, he said, no, this is a significant story and I'm, happy to lend my voice to it. And I'm sure the same thing will happen elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that was an immense honor for me. And there's a story that I had gone to Nasir Saab long time back when I was making Chittagong for him to play Master Da's role. Okay. And we had a long discussion and he said, no, I think I'm a little too old for that character. So he didn't do it.
Right.
So now that we managed to collaborate, that was a great thing for me.
Right.
And we had shown the movie to Tikayatji. Okay. He loved it.
Yeah.
He's saying that he's going to take it to villages, and I hope that happens. I mean, there's a lot of journey left for this.
But I think it's again going to be shown for the farmers also. I mean, in the next few days.
So there's a screening here in Delhi, but that's the English version.
Right.
But there are Hindi version would be shown. There are many people that have shown interest in taking it to farmers' unions and so on. And let this movie go to farmers. Let this movie go to all thinking people. Let this movie go to educational
I remember you telling that you need to talk to people, pro-reform people also.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that you hear, MSP, like if we can talk about it for a brief moment, they would say, it's a Soviet policy.
Right.
No, it's an American policy. MSP
it's an American policy.
Is a market mechanism.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing that was kind of shot down in the US, causing the great collapse of agriculture there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is and when MSP existed in America, which is called parity, consumers did not suffer. Consumers actually had less, the food cost was less.
Right.
Food costs for working people have only gone up.
Right.
So we see that these mechanisms, that actually farmers benefit. It's not just farmers who benefit. All farmers benefit, not just big farmers. Big farmers, medium farmers, small farmers, because once you have the MSP, you can't bring the cost down.
Absolutely.
And the consumers benefit, because now there is a fixed price, so you cannot really bump it up.
Right.
So the only people who suffer, I think, with MSP or parity are the corporates, because they can't do price manipulation.
So that is exactly what they are doing now.
Yes.
Well, good going, and I hope that we are able to take you to all parts of India, and of course the movie will go to all parts of India. Thank you very much for spending time with the AIDEM.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to having more conversations with you on your future films and future ideas that you have.
Certainly, it would be my pleasure. Thank you very much.